Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Lori, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Jennifer, who is a marriage and family counselor who also lives with BPD and reached out to me to share a bit about her story, and it's so fascinating. So I'm really, really excited for you to get to know her as well. So, Jennifer, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, like who you are, what your journey was to get to this place?
Sure, that's a
big question. It's a big question.
So who am I? So I'm in my late 40s. I'm a single mom. I have two kiddos, 13 and 7. We live in Northern California. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been doing it for, 5 years now. I've been licensed for 2 years. Before that, I was a yoga therapist. Before that, I was a yoga teacher. So that's been my trajectory, right? I've come from body-based healing and then decided to get licensed by the state.
That's really funny. I've actually wanted to have a yoga therapist come on and talk because I think it's a fascinating thing. So
here I am.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know that was you, but I guess we're here. So yeah, so you got licensed as a marriage and family therapist. So, okay, now I'm just curious. So yoga therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anybody that goes into any sort of therapy does it for a reason.
Oh, I could tell you exactly what the reason is.
Okay,
to figure out. And this is actually the big secret in therapy, right? Is that people are like, oh, you're a therapist, so you must be so empathetic and you must be this and that. And it's like, actually, most therapists are in it because we need to figure ourselves out.
Yep, totally.
And our families.
Absolutely.
And looking at like, why are my relationships the way that they are? Why are people the way that they are?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is the empathy and the compassion piece, but
yeah,
really it is about figuring out what's going on in here.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I know that's why I went into psychology. I'm not a counselor, but I did my bachelor's in psychology and obviously ended up in the mental health field. And I'm like, yeah, it was 1000% because I was like, something is horribly wrong and I need to figure out what it is. So yoga teacher, yoga therapist, marriage and family counselor. And then at what point in this journey did you kind of start to have this realization of like, oh, maybe I am starting to figure myself out and it might be something like BPD?
So it's funny to have, the hindsight is 2020 going on where you look back and you go, oh, the signs are there for anything.
Yeah, totally.
Right? The signs are there, looking at relationships and the kinds of things that I have been teaching clients for the last couple of years about, hey, look at your relationships. Are they functional? Are they toxic? Do you get out of them quickly? Do you get, just all of these patterns? Mm-hmm. And then looking back at my own life and going, yeah, those patterns are there.
Did I get into them quickly? Did I get out of them too fast?
Do I attract narcissists? Oh, I do. And it's all of these things that, my mind works off patterns. And so I'm a pattern recognizer. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny to kind of have myself be behind the curtain in a sense. Like I'm looking at everybody else and I'm noticing all these patterns and I'm seeing, their behavior and then not seeing my own, which is the same as the mechanic who has a car that's always breaking down or the hairstylist who's bald. It's like the therapist who's like, oh, this is not my problem. No. Mm-mm.
I'm helping all these other people. I can't have problems.
Yeah. This is not me. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it is me? No. It's just coincidence. But when I was married, and we went to couples counseling a couple of times, actually, we tried a few different couples counselors, and one that we went to was particularly astute about what was going on with me. And she saw both me and my ex-husband separately and then together. And when we had individual sessions, she was kind of like, well, tell me about how this behavior started. Like, tell me about in childhood. Tell me about, bring in pictures of yourself when you were younger and tell me about your brother. Tell me about your parents, and it kind of started to ring this little bell in the back of my head where I was like, what's really going on here? And then she basically told my ex-husband, this is so fascinating because I don't know if it's true or not, right? I don't know if she actually told him this because it was relayed through him. So he could have been lying.
Right. Yeah.
I have no idea. But he told me that what she said to him during one of their individual sessions was that if my behavior didn't change, that he needed to divorce me right away. And I was like, ooh, that is actually unethical. for
Yeah.
a therapist to say to a client.
Especially a family therapist, because
Especially, yeah.
you're technically like supporting both, right?
Yeah, you're supporting the couple. And so,
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned early on in my training was that if you're working with a couple, you are working for the couple. And you are wanting their relationship to succeed. You're wanting them to feel happier and healthier within their marriage or their partnership. And so that, when he told me that, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, and that put me into, a shame spiral and fear. But then years later is when I thought about it, and I thought, I wonder if he was lying.
Right.
I wonder if he made that up just to make it seem sort of legitimized, because he wanted to go and to have a professional back him up. I don't know.
Maybe.
So I could ask him, but he probably wouldn't remember.
No, he's probably like, that was just like a random thing I said. That's the thing, right? Is sometimes what affects us the most and that you're still thinking about however many years later. They're like, oh yeah, I didn't even remember that. Okay, cool.
I wonder if that's a bad idea. I should ask him.
You should call him right now. No, I'm just kidding. Is that the father of your kids?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. So when did you guys get divorced?
It's been 4 years.
Okay.
It's been, it's so hard to say because it takes so long for the process to happen.
Yeah, totally.
That I'm kind of like, we started the process in the summer of 2020. So yeah.
I have a really random but funny story about that. So my parents got divorced when I was 10, 9, I don't know, really young. And it was like totally fine. I liked them better separate anyways. It worked better. And then I was taking like a law class in like 12th grade. And I went home and said, oh yeah, like we learned about this thing where like you have to be separated, like living apart or whatever for a year before you can like officially get divorced. My mom was like, oh yeah. And I said, so when did you and dad actually like get divorced? And she's like, oh, we actually never did. And I was like, oh, really? And this was like, again, I was probably 15 years older at that point or something ridiculous. Yep. No, not 15 years, but it had been a long time, like 8 years or something. And she's like, yeah, we never did. And it wasn't that I wanted them to get back together. That was just ridiculous. She just basically didn't want to do the paperwork. And then like
pay the fee to the court.
Yeah. She was like, whatever. Like they have a decent relationship. They weren't getting remarried. They were like, it doesn't matter. Let's just not bother. Yeah. So then a couple weeks later, my mom just randomly says to me like, oh, by the way, we signed our divorce papers, because I guess they had basically like forgotten essentially that they had never gotten divorced. And they finally just went like, whatever, let's just pay the fee and get it done. I lost my mind.
When they made it official?
Yeah. I wept for so long. And it was the most ridiculous thing because my poor mom was like, why are you, what happened? She's like, we've been separated for...
Because they've been living separately for...
Yeah, for like 10 years or something ridiculous. Yeah. And it was just something about the like finality of it. And then of course, my brain was like, I caused their divorce.
Yep.
Even though like... Yep. Just because I reminded them. Anyways, so ridiculous, but that's...
Logically, we all know these things are false, and then it's like...
Oh, I know.
Party that's like, sense. Oh, definitely, that was me. That was me.
I know. Totally. It's just like such a stupid reaction. But anyways, kind of funny. So yeah, the process does take a long time, especially if you're my parents.
Well, I think it just took us the normal amount of time where you file 6 months and 6 months and whatever. But we separated. Yeah, we separated in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
So it's been almost 5 years since we've been apart, and but I mean, he's a great guy. He's not. I don't have anything bad to say about my ex-husband. He's great. But we are very, very different people, and we don't have the same perspective about the way the world works. Mm-hmm. And so that was just constant. Just that'd like, be hard. What are you doing? What are you thinking? This is alien. So yeah.
So you had gone to family or couples counseling before. So that was before you'd actually become one yourself, right? Is that what kind of like triggered this in your head of like, I think I want to do this?
No, actually it's funny. Again, hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was a yoga teacher, and then I became a yoga therapist. And then I had this weird idea that somehow being a yoga therapist wasn't enough, and that I wouldn't be able to make a living. I wouldn't be able to have a career, that it was not legit, which is totally wrong. There are people that are full-time yoga therapists working in all different capacities, and they have a beautiful, career and living. And so that was totally wrong. But in looking at my brain, right, like introspectively, it's like, oh, I actually went to grad school because I wanted to impress my mom and my husband, and I want them to love me, So it was like, if I look like I'm smart enough, if I'm successful, if I can, get a master's degree, which is rare in my family, it would be somehow, I don't know,
legitimize you, make you valuable, worth
make
it.
Me valuable, make me worthwhile, make everybody go, oh, you're the best, so that I wouldn't feel so invalidated. And so that was originally,
I think that's a very common experience for a lot of people.
Yep, totally. And so that was the thing in the back of my mind that I wasn't recognizing. I was like, oh, this just makes sense. I'm gonna, sure, I'll become an LMFT after being a yoga therapist, sure. But no, it was definitely to get my husband and my mom to love me.
Fair. Did it work?
It did not. And
no. Funny how that works.
That's where we know it's like, this is a very illogical choice, but
yeah, happens a lot.
But the funny thing is that part just kind of floated away, because what I realized is that I was super curious about people, very interested in the way the brain works and behaviorism, and wrapping all these different things in, like my yoga, spirituality, all the different modalities and all of the theories that I could get my hands on. So it was a really good fit in the end. But yeah, I was like, please love me.
Yeah, for sure. Been there. So, okay, I'm going to jump around slightly. What was your childhood like growing up?
Oh, that's not a big question.
I know. We don't have all day, but we'll try.
So I am what do we call Xennial, who are late Gen X? I think there's
no idea.
There's a little overlap between the Gen X and the millennials. So I was born in the 80s. And so I think I'm considered an Xennial. I don't know. Okay. But anyway.
Never heard of it, but yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Well, I lean into the Gen X. So, this, you can picture it, right? Middle class, suburban, we're riding our bikes until dark.
Right.
Drinking out of hoses, that kind of
as you do.
Stereotype, as one does. And yeah, I grew up with my mom and my dad, older brother, he's 2 years older than me. And my dad was definitely a narcissist. My mom was depressed, and she's empathic. And so, of course, I don't know, that goes together. The narcissist empath relationship, just like the narcissist borderline, And so it was very tumultuous, because he was critical and verbally abusive, physically abusive to her and my brother. And so I was the one who was like, oh gosh, I got to keep everything, on the level here. And to kind of go a little bit far afield, like astrologically, I have a lot of Libra in my chart. And so I want everything to be balanced. I want everybody to be okay. I want relationships to work smoothly and harmony in the environment. And so my role in my family was essentially that. And I'm funny. And so I would, lighten the mood, and I would try to make people happier and try to stay out of the way. And, I did gymnastics, soccer, softball, basketball, played all the sports, got really sporty, was really good at school, had multiple friend groups, but there's that seed of, my dad cheating on my mom, and then my brother beating me up, and like those things plant something in you, right? And so then I moved through high school.
Again, that hindsight 2020 thing.
Hindsight,
you would have never thought of it at the time, yeah.
No, at the time I was like, we went to Disneyland,
Yeah.
So much fun, and Knott's Berry Farm, and and then I look at a picture of my brother and I from, for example, that trip to Knott's Berry Farm. If you don't know about it, it's a really cute little.
I actually just found out about it recently. Yeah, a friend of mine went there. Yeah.
So funny. I'm such a weird info geek that, like, I had to go through what's the history of Knott's Berry Farm? Like, let me look this up.
Yeah, I do that stuff all the time.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, look, and that's how they, anyway. So looking at a photo of my brother and I from that trip, and he's kind of doing this, and I'm kind of doing this, and so our body language is so clear, and again, hindsight, right? Looking at, so my daughter just played soccer for the first time last fall, and I found soccer team photos of myself when I was her age. And I'm looking at them and I'm seeing this girl who's got her shoulders all hunched up. Her hands are clasped in between her thighs. And she's kind of, in all of the pictures. And I'm just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, what? I was so
You're sheltered from something, right?
I was very much in protective mode. And when I think about my childhood, I think, well, of course I was, right? Like I said, my brother would beat me up. I mean, it was like gray area torture. And my dad was, volatile. And so it's like, of course I'm like, oh gosh, I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
But feeling into myself now, I'm like, that doesn't seem like me. So
interesting.
It's a strange thing to look back at stuff like that and feel a disconnect between what was, the seeds that were planted in my system and then my life experience. Cause it's like, oh, it doesn't match, but then it actually does.
Especially when you're going through your own, not only like you're a counselor, but also you're raising your own kids. So you're having all of these like realizations, I'm sure, when you're looking at your kids going, oh, interesting. How is that different than my upbringing? Or like, are they okay? I'm sure there's a lot of fear about like, are they okay?
Well, there is. And psychologically, this is something that I tell clients all the time, is that as parents, when your children are the age that you were when shit hit the fan. Can I say that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, go for it.
That you're going to find yourself being re-traumatized. You're going to find yourself being triggered because they are you. Yeah. And that is exactly what's happened. So my daughter's 7 and my parents got divorced when I was 7. And so this whole past year has just been me being like, oh my gosh, like I'm looking at her and she has divorced parents and I'm thinking, oh, I messed up really badly. And we're continuing this pattern and, oh, geez, and feeling guilty about it. But isn't that funny? Just because she got to that age. Because before that, I was like, yeah, you're dead. We're not meant to be married. It's fine. We're good parents and he pays me child support. Everything's great.
Yeah, totally.
But when she got to that age, and like I said, the soccer pictures, like looking, and here I am at the age she is now, and I'm like, whoo, this is, it's brought up a lot.
And it's the same situation because it's an older son, like the same in terms of your brother and you. He was older. You have an older son, younger daughter. Yep. Yeah, lots of parallels. Yep. Interesting.
Lots of parallels.
Hi, everyone. We are back and had some tech issues that have never happened before. So Jennifer's still here, despite Apple computers wanting this to not happen. So we'll see. This might be a weird,
fancy
like
apples.
Something in the universe did not want this recording to happen. But
we'll push through and do it
anyway. We're going to do it anyways. And hopefully that's okay. So anyways, Jennifer, what were we talking about when you're parenting and then you are...
And your children,
you see your kid
get to the age that you were when you had kind of a family of origin trauma. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it all comes flooding back and you get triggered. And that's what's happened to me. That's what we were talking about. Mm-hmm.
And then that's kind of like that, and becoming a therapist has been like part of this kind of discovery of like, oh, I can't pretend that everything was fine anymore. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what has that like been like?
It's been an interesting sort of mind warp. I'll use clean language. Because I'm super into authenticity and helping other people be authentic and helping people love themselves as they are. Like that's my thing, right? And so to look at myself and go, okay, what you haven't been doing is loving yourself as you are. And to really take a long look in the mirror, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. It's like, It's true. It's funny because it's true. Because
Yeah.
I had no idea, because I'm so enthusiastic and I'm so optimistic and energetic. And so everyone is always, describing me as, light and fun and all of these things that I absolutely resonate with. But then there's always been this other side that was moody and dark and depressed and would fall into these depressive cycles and hide from people. And I remember once when I was in college, I was hiding. It was a hiding moment, right? Where I went into a dark, place, and I was in my bed just for days. And I had friends that came to the window. I lived in a second story apartment, and they came and they were throwing rocks at my window.
How romantic.
Oh, I know. They're like my rugby teammates, they're just, Jen, we know you're in there. And I was
it's literally from a movie.
Yeah. Like hiding, covers over the head, and never connected the dots. Never was like, oh, maybe you have bipolar. Maybe these aren't just mood swings. Maybe you have another mental illness that's on board. Maybe, just none of the maybes showed up. It was all just deny, avoid, repress, like, don't even think about it, because that wasn't part of my identity. So, like I said, my rugby teammates, so I played rugby in college, and my nickname on our team was Twinkle Toes, because at practice,
such a depressing name.
No. So sad. I mean, as you can tell, I'm, very, very morose and melancholy person. Well, it was well earned, because at practice, I was always the one that was dancing around.
Right.
Trying to distract people, and the coach would always be like, are you taking this seriously? And I was like, no! Why? Are you taking life seriously? What are you talking about? We're early 20-something, women running around in cleats, tackling each other.
Yeah. What is there to take seriously?
You want me to take this seriously? So, yeah, they named me Twinkle Toes, because I was always dancing around. So that I think that identity made it really hard for me to see this other part of myself. And, like I said, like, I'm really into authenticity and people understanding themselves, know thyself. And so I've done all the personality inventories, all the personality tests I could find, for starting in high school. I was just like, who am I? And I took all the quizzes and, got all these archetypes and, like the Myers-Briggs, right? I'm an ENFP, T, turbulent. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Stuff
it's a good
like
word,
yeah. Turbulent. But, things like that I created this identity, and it wasn't completely 3D, I guess I would say. Like, it wasn't totally fleshed out, because I wasn't actually showing that part of myself to people. It was very embarrassing and shameful to say, oh, I actually feel sad most of the time. I actually, when I'm ghosting, it's not because I don't want to connect with people. It's because I can't. It's because I need to just be in my, cave, my fortress of solitude.
Well, they may not have even believed you, right? If you were Twinkle Toes to say, hey, I'm depressed all the time, they might have been like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? But it's because you're good at kind of like blending in, essentially.
I'm really good at it. I'm such a good chameleon, and that I thought, well, what a great skill that I have. And then going through my schooling, realizing actually this is a coping mechanism, that you learned how to get along with anybody. You learned how to read the room. You learned what to do, what not to do around certain people in order to survive. And yes, it has become a skill. It's become, it's actually not something that I really have to work at, but to see that it has sort of an origin in that, in that self-protective, like, I need to survive, I need to stay part of the tribe, please don't abandon me, please stay connected with me, kind of a way that's been part of my personality forever. And not wanting people to see the other part. has been really hard, because that other part is like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Hey, like, and notice me, please.
Notice me, because I'm not going away. And one of the things about being a therapist that people also, here's another secret of the trade, right? Is that we're doing our work. Yeah. Absolutely. We are parallel processing all the time. And I've had moments like these sort of flashbang, like moments of, for example, a client, telling me no one likes a sad girl, talking about her own sadness when she was growing up. And I just went, oh, she's right.
Yeah.
No one likes a sad girl. Well, no wonder. No wonder I wouldn't have shown that part of myself. Because no one likes a sad girl. So I got to smile and everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah. But then figuring that out, through having the language, right? Going through a master's in psychology, becoming a licensed therapist, doing the 3,000 hours of supervision, and having an amazing supervisors, and just being able to say, oh my gosh, this is what's been going on inside this head too. And I'm no longer afraid of it. So that's been a really cool thing over the last couple of years. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And did you have, so when you started kind of like realizing this, did you have resistance in the moment of like, whoa, no, I don't want to like kind of go down this path of self-discovery? Or were you at that point like, oh, maybe I'm finally figuring this out and I'm comfortable with it?
Oh, I resisted because, and the main reason was because of my children. So a lot of clients, and this is, I don't know what you would even call it, the rule of magnetism, maybe.
Okay.
That, you attract things that resonate, that you need, that other people need, what have you. And I was getting a lot of clients who had BPD or had a mom with BPD.
Yeah.
And so when I had the realization a couple of years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I am the mom with BPD and I am bleeping up my kids.
Yeah.
And it was
that would be hard as hell.
Devastating. Yeah, it was hard as hell. It was devastating. And so I thought, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know that this has been part of how I have been, harming my children. And I had to take that pride and that embarrassment and just put it to the side and say, what's the most important thing here? The most important thing is that my kids feel loved and understood. And I even bought books for them about what it's like to be the child of a parent with borderline.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a handful of them out there.
Are there? Are they like stigmatizing though, or are they like okay?
No. There's one. What is it called? Alex's umbrella, I think, and which is funny because my son's name is Alex. But it's this kid, he has an umbrella, and it's basically a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
For the rain is all the emotions, all the volatility, all of the dysregulation, right? From his mom, and he has his umbrella. And so he can protect himself from it. And it's really lovely. And there was another one that had, I can't think of the name of it right now, but animal characters, family.
There's like Millie the Cat has borderline personality disorder, which I think is a hilarious name for a book. And I own that one. It's very cute. Yeah.
Isn't there a Millie the Cat has depression, or Millie the Cat?
I think I think it's a series. Yeah. But the BPD one's good. Like I just love it.
Yep. And so I found resources for my kiddos to be like, hey, this is what's going on in mommy's head, and this is why I act so weird, and this is why, I yell, and then I'm crying, and then I'm, and just like explaining to them, like, this is what's happening with me, and it's all about me, and just really reinforcing that it's not about them.
Yeah, totally.
Which is exactly what I have told clients who, had a mom with BPD. It's not about you. She's got stuff going on inside of her head that has nothing to do with you. So having that parallel process has been interesting because it's helped my work. It's helped my parenting. But it's also been, on the other side, really embarrassing, really shameful. When we first moved here, we've lived in Auburn for almost 4 years. And I made a friend at my kid's school. He's another, single parent. And I told him,
I was like, yeah, I have borderline. And he was like, what, you admit that? You actually tell people that? And I was like, no, I don't. You're one of the first.
Yeah, you're like, and this went great, so
and this is
fabulous.
Really awesome. I promise I won't try to burn your house down. And I actually had a colleague a couple of years ago who told me that. He said, don't tell people that. He said, don't tell people. And I was just like, why? Why would I not? And he goes, because then they're going to think you're violent. And I was like, whoa, what do you have going on?
Yeah, that's a you problem, sir. And a society problem, not just that person, to be fair. But yeah, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I've been told that too. Like, you should be really careful about who you disclose to. And I was like,
be really careful.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But also, if people like me and like yourself who are articulate and living like a normal life and aren't out there burning people's houses down or whatever the stereotype is, if we don't say anything, then the only people that you ever hear about are people who, like, you know, murdered their husband or whatever.
Yeah,
that's
and
not
if you've
helpful.
ever googled representation,
people with BPD,
in entertainment, in movies and TV shows, right?
Yeah,
it's not
great.
It's not great.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I love Pete Davidson. He's a hero of mine, has been forever. But like Pete Davidson, and I don't like to speculate on people's diagnoses, but like Pete Davidson is fully out. Brandon Marshall's a football player, fully out, also stabbed his wife. Or no, his wife stabbed him. Either way, somebody got stabbed. Not great. I think he's amazing. There's an amazing documentary about his BPD, actually. But
really? Oh,
yeah, it's really good. It's called A Football Life or something. And I don't care about sports at all, but it's really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah, like Angelina Jolie, Britney Spears, people that like aren't, I wouldn't say like role models necessarily for like emotional wellness would be the like people that people talk about. And I don't think that's necessarily accurate.
It's not. And, you know, to follow up on what you were talking about or what you were asking, you know, a few minutes ago, is that when I went down that rabbit hole and did all this research about how to support my kids, right? And what does it mean? And I was on Reddit and I was on Quora and I was on all these forums and people talking about it. And it felt so validating. We're going to use that word again, right? It was so validating to see people who were talking about it without the stigma and just being like, this is how I operate and it sucks sometimes and I ruin relationships and I hate that part, but here I am. I'm going to accept myself fully as much as I possibly can. And that was really the most helpful thing for me at that time, was to just see normal people being like, I'm just living my life, like you're saying, right? Like I'm functional.
That's the point of this podcast, really, right? Is like,
exactly.
There's like regular humans that have these stories, and
humans.
We can all relate to different people. Why don't we share their stories?
Who are high functioning, you know? But then we have that other side of like, oh, BPD equals crazy hot. Like all women with BPD are crazy and hot. Yeah. And so they're all
are people with BPD good at sex is like one of the like suggested, or why are people with BPD good at sex? I was like, I don't know, but thank you. It's one of the like Google suggestions when you Google BPD and you're just like, wow.
How's that a thing?
Yeah.
How is that a thing? Well, one of the things that's been so funny about it is that I actually pointed this out to my boyfriend at the time, right? Mm-hmm. I was dating a guy. I think I wrote this to you, right? He was a covert narcissist. Yeah. And so he's very much in that space. I don't know if you know about covert narcissism. It's all the martyr, the like, I don't feel well, and I'm the take care of me, like very much. Anyway, so I told him, I was like, hey, I think this is what's going on with me, and I think this is what's going on with you, and this is why we're attracted to each other, because there's that dynamic of narcissism borderline that, you know,
connect,
find each other. And he was like, yeah.
Great. He's like, we're all on the same page.
And he had mommy issues, and so he would always say things to me that had nothing to do with me. They were all about his mom, and I was like, I think your mom was probably borderline too.
Yeah. It is funny. We find the things that we know. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's how that went down. You know, it was just like this realization, and then I was devastated. I spiraled for months
for months. I was just like in this spiral of, oh, there's hope. Oh, there's community. Oh, I don't have to beat myself up. And then, yes, I do, because, oh, my poor kids, and oh, all my relationships, and oh no, what would my clients think if I, and just this, all of it was, and I actually had that. I wrote an article online about, being a parent with BPD and how I have to repair the relationship with my children over and over and over again. And, somebody made a comment to that effect, like, aren't you a therapist? What would your clients say if they knew this about you? And I was just like, ooh, that's harsh.
Yeah. Also, I feel like a lot of clients would be like, oh, wow, I feel so represented and seen. Realistically.
It might. Yeah. Well, and except for, having a lot of clients that have a mom.
Yeah, that might be
who has
different.
Or had BPD, and it's like, I want to show them that the universe put us together so that you can have a corrective emotional experience, as we say in the biz, right? That you can see that somebody who has the same disordered thinking as your mom can treat you well and can have compassion
and
for
care
you,
about you
and care about you and show up for you. And so I'm thinking that I should have disclosed. I should have, told people, or be out there, like people do. And they're like, oh, I'm this therapist. It's like, oh, I'm the ADHD BPD therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough, right? Like both parts have a risk, and it's easier to not put it out there and risk it. But I will say, like, the therapist piece is really cool, and like I think has a lot of potential value. But the parenting piece, like you being a parent and having done that work and like written that article, which I would love if it's possible to link in the notes.
Absolutely, yeah.
There are so many parents that have BPD that have kids, and they worry about this all the time.
Yep.
And I'm not a parent. I don't want to be a parent. And I'm often asked. It's probably one of the number one questions is how do I tell this to my kids?
Yeah.
And so the fact that you've done that work and the fact that your kids are like aware of what's going on is so different than like I assume most of the clients that you have whose parents had BPD. It probably wasn't something that you just talked about in a day-to-day basis.
And I think that's, what my friend that I told you about that I met at my kid's school, when we first moved, he was like, oh my gosh, tell people that. And he actually told his therapist too. He was like, I met this lady and she told me she has borderline. And I thought that was crazy. Like, she admitted it, like out in the open.
Yeah.
In broad daylight.
She's not a weird vampire that only comes out at night to burn people's houses down.
It was so funny that his perception of it. But to see things, from a clinical lens, and to see, behaviors that my daughter is, engaging in, and be like, oh no, she's going to be borderline, or oh no, she's going to be a narcissist. Oh no, that's the pattern. This is what I've created, and to have that shame just put you on lockdown.
Yeah.
And not let you go, So that was one of the reasons why I wrote the article. And it's actually called My Broken Brain Breaks My Kids' Hearts. And I know it brings a tear to your eye, doesn't it?
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I wrote it because I needed to express it, right? Like I needed to say, like, yes, this is true. My broken brain breaks my kids' hearts. And I have to repair our relationships over and over and over again. And this is one of the things that apparently I've taken on in this lifetime. Right? Apparently this is one of my sacred contracts, and I'm supposed to be here to do that and help other people do that. But I tell you what, I have had rarely have I had a client with borderline with children. It's usually somebody who doesn't have any kids, like yourself. I don't want kids, right?
Yeah.
Or someone whose mom.
Right. Borderline. Interesting. What about like spouses or like
friends?
And
that's an interesting one too, because often people don't know, especially when it's men with BPD. It's like they have no idea.
Yeah.
And then, you bring this to them and say, hey, I think you should check this out. You meet the criteria. Let's look at this, because then we can look at what treatment, like DBT or other things that will be the most helpful. And it's a scarlet letter. Nobody wants to take that on. Nobody wants to put that on themselves. And that's, definitely why my friend was like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, we have to. And the funny thing is
blood on me.
The other thing that I hear all the time, truly I hear this all the time, is people will reach out to me and they'll have found me, whatever, I don't know how. And they'll reach out and say, oh my God, you're the only person I've ever talked to that has borderline personality disorder. And they're from Brazil.
Not.
Yeah, they're from Brazil or England or the Philippines. And I go, I'm so glad you found me. Thank you so much for reaching out. I can 100% guarantee you that I'm not the only person you've ever talked to that had borderline personality disorder.
Yep.
2 to 6% of the population has borderline personality disorder. Chances are there's been other people.
If we do the math.
Yeah, if you're in a room, let's say your high school graduating class was 100 people, you were not the only one. Yeah, but because nobody talks about it, people live in this realm of shame where they go, well, everybody's going to judge me. They're going to think I'm a freak. And I do a lot of presenting at conferences and stuff. The amount of people that come after, I have a lineup when I present at conferences afterwards. They literally will come up and say, thank you so much. I have this. Thank you so much. My daughter has this. Thank you so much. My mom had this. Thank you so much. My wife has this. Every time. I have yet to be in a conference where I have not had a lineup of people telling me about their lived experience in one way or the other. And it's because nobody talks about it. And people are shocked that anybody is up there talking about it. So I'm so glad you are.
Well, and I could speak to that too. It's because the stigma of it, right? It's but my ex-colleague, don't tell people, they're going to think you're violent.
Yeah.
It's don't tell people, because then they're going to have these preconceived ideas about what that means about you, and what that means for your relationship with them, and what they need to look out for, and they're going to have to keep their guard up, and they're going to, and just all these things that it's just oh man, can't I just be somebody who, I don't know, has IBS or...
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had cancer, there's no way they would be like, whoa, don't tell people that. That's really depressing.
That's really depressing. All right.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with schizophrenia.
Oh, totally.
The same thing with bipolar. It's the same thing where, people are like, ooh, you're not going to be a normal person. You're not going to be the average person that I'm engaging with.
Totally.
And it could be dangerous. It could be painful. Yeah.
Yeah. People with mental health issues are more likely to be victims of violent crime than perpetrate it. So that stigma doesn't check out.
No.
But here we are.
Reality check, people.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at the media, right, they would tell you otherwise. If you Google borderline personality disorder news, I'm sure it's mostly negative stories about, Jodi Arias killed her husband or whatever. And that's a funny one. Not funny, I guess. But anyways, I like true crime. It's a strange one, but it's a very borderline experience, that one. Yeah, it's so important that people speak out. And I also understand that some people just can't for various reasons, and that's okay too, right? If they can feel validated in one way or another, then I'm so happy. And I hope that the more of us that do speak out, the more safe it is for people to do that. Hi, everyone. I'm back with Jennifer, and let's see how long this lasts, because based on our recording today, it's going to last between 26 minutes and 24 minutes, because every single time we record, something destroys itself halfway through the recording. So we have truthfully, we don't know where we were when we ended the last episode. So let's just call that, or not even the last episode, the last 24-minute segment. Let's just call that a little ad break and continue with whatever is going to happen before one of our computers dies again. So, okay. Literally don't know what we were talking about before. So let's get into... You discover you have BPD, but you have not been officially diagnosed. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I unofficially diagnosed myself. But, what's funny, actually, is that I've been to plenty of therapists over the years, and not one brought it up. And I wonder about that, like we were talking about earlier about, not wanting to tell people.
Yeah, happens a lot.
And I know that with clients that I'm like, ooh, you meet the criteria. Let's look at this. That, people think that BPD is the diagnosis that you kind of stay away from, that people don't want to know. It's a scarlet letter. It's the most shameful, etc. And so I think that might be why. I mean, not that I'm going to give my previous therapist a pass, because they should have said, hey, here's something you should check out.
Or even like, hey, you have you have some traits, like it might be helpful for you to learn some DBT skills, like anything would be helpful.
I even had a therapist once, I remember 20 years ago, when I was talking about, feeling like I was in a storm, volatility in my head, all this stuff. And she was like, yeah, so many of us experience that. Like, she just kind of generalized. And I was like, that's not very helpful for me. And then I had another one after I'd had children, who I was talking about, my harshness as a mom, and like just how I was like, I'm so much more irritable than I feel like I really am. And there's just all these layers of, this irritability and anger and harshness, and, and she was just like, I bet you're doing your best, the best you can. Just very like,
you're like, yeah, I mean, I am doing the best I can, but also help me.
Also, yeah. So it is interesting to kind of put that as part of my journey, that other people, that clinicians have avoided supporting me in that discovery, which
totally
I'm very disappointed in.
Yeah, as you should be. And sometimes I wonder if, like, you come across really well, you are beautiful, you have a job, you have kids. If people are just like, no, she can't have BPD. Because I do hear that a lot myself, because I'm so beautiful and have a job. No, I do hear that a lot. Yeah, because I like have a normal life, and people go, you can't have BPD.
Yep.
And I go, oh, I sure as fuck do. And I've had a psychiatrist tell me so, multiple psychiatrists, in fact. Yeah. And there's this, because people don't talk about it, clinicians only see people in distress. So they start to think that people with BPD are only ever in distress.
Yeah.
And so if you don't meet that model of like, I broke up with my boyfriend and now I want to kill myself, which is often where a lot of people with BPD kind of discover that they have it, because that's when they seek treatment. And I don't say that lightly. That's exactly what I did. But I've heard stories from so many people about the fact that clinicians haven't told them, even given them a hint.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, they get their medical records for whatever reason. And it's in there.
And it's in there. It just wasn't spoken. I wonder.
Wasn't spoken.
Yeah. I wonder.
And not only is that messed up from a point of view of, you deserve to have the information that you like about yourself. It's your information. Your medical records belong to you. But it's also really messed up because it means that you have this label, this like black label on your record that everybody can see but you. So if you're being treated badly by the healthcare system or by your clinician or by whoever the hell, you don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Which just is a cycle that we don't need. We need to have all of the information that we have. And because I know it's on my records, when I go to the hospital or a medical appointment, if it's not related, so I have chronic pain, for example, if I have some sort of like flare up or issue and I have to go to the hospital, or I have a cardiac issue, if I have to go to the hospital, my husband and I look at each other and go, not relevant. We're not going to mention it, because hopefully they didn't look. Right. But I have been discriminated against in the healthcare system multiple times because of my diagnosis. And if you had no idea that you had this diagnosis and everybody else did, that is like gaslighting in the biggest form ever.
Well, yeah. And like, that's exactly why I say I have heard from clients, and also from this experience of, my own experience, that I feel so disappointed in my profession.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I think therapy is helpful and that people, can change their lives, and that I think I'm a good therapist, but there are a lot of not so great ones out there who do things like that, who will keep things from clients, or misinform them or somehow perpetuate the stigma. Yeah.
And I think for most of them, it's done out of their own misunderstanding of the benefit of the diagnosis and their own stigma that they're putting on somebody else.
Yeah.
And they're trying to be helpful, but it's not. It's funny. I literally today just did a presentation about reframing the diagnosis and like the positives of getting a diagnosis.
Yeah.
I just did a presentation about that. So I think it's going to be on YouTube, so I can put it in the chat, or in the show notes. But I did my master's research on BPD, and most people in my study talked about how valuable getting a diagnosis was for them. Because they were like, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not a freak. There's something that I can do about this. Everything makes sense.
Yeah.
So many explanations of why getting the diagnosis was beneficial. So yeah, it's so fascinating. And
then
I'm sad for you that you weren't given that information in a way that you needed to receive it.
And that I actually kind of fell into that trap too with some clients that I'm like, ooh, I don't think I should tell them this because it would be too distressful. But then I got over myself. And I was like, hey, I have to tell you this because it's for your benefit. And then if you freak out on me, great, we can work through that. But I'm not going to withhold information from you. But also the comorbidity, like people who are like, oh, I have ADHD, but there's also this other stuff going on. And I'm like, you probably have the ADHD, BPD, like
magic combo that everybody has,
or chronic pain, like you have, right? Or get misdiagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah, always. So many stories of that,
right? So common. Yeah. And I've had so many clients who were borderline, but were misdiagnosed with bipolar. And then we're asking like, well, should I go back to my psychiatrist or primary care physician and get on meds? And I'm like, no, that's not going to help you because you don't have bipolar.
Yeah. Totally.
So it's not going to do anything for you. So it is interesting to talk about diagnoses and how there are stigmas attached to certain ones, and especially the ones that are of the psychotic flavor, like schizophrenia or BPD, what have you. But it's just, I look at my own experience of that and I go, man, I wish somebody had just been courageous enough to say, hey, here's what I think is going on with you. And then we could have talked about what could have helped, decades.
Totally.
Before. Yeah.
Well, and to me, my mentality on diagnosis is like, it's only as beneficial as it is to the individual receiving it. And so if you said, I don't want a diagnosis, I don't want a label for this, or I don't agree with your label, that's all good. Then you have every right to say, nope, I don't resonate with that. And you don't have to use it.
Yep.
However, you should be given the opportunity to make that decision for yourself. And that decision should not be made for you by some random person that knows you. They don't know you better than yourself. That's impossible.
But they're a therapist.
I know. They have so many letters behind their name. Yeah. Again, as we said earlier in this episode, everybody's making it up as we go along. So
yeah. I've heard that so many times. But you're a therapist. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know shit. What are you talking about?
I could be a plumber. Why would it matter?
Yeah, totally. Truly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so to end us off before our stuff cuts out again, because it will. And then I'm very excited for you to buy a new laptop. I can't wait to hear about it. I want you to send me a picture.
No, I'm just gonna get my battery fixed. I'm gonna go to the.
I feel like Apple's gonna come get you though. They're gonna fix the battery and then the next thing's gonna break. Anyways,
like, sorry,
I clearly have trust
buy
issues.
A battery for $50. We have to charge you $1,000 for a new laptop.
I honestly would not be surprised. Anyways, so my last question is always, what is your favorite thing about having BPD?
That's a tough question. My favorite thing, it's, I'm gonna go through the back door with this because, like I said, I have ADHD going on too, which is commonly comorbid, like I was saying, right? And I've just recently leaned into that, it being a positive, like just recently leaned into, oh, this is actually a good thing for me because the way that my brain works is beautiful and I'm creative, etc. but I don't know that I've come up with positives about having BPD. It's like we're talking about, the stigma kind of creates a disconnect between people, a distance. I don't like that. The volatility, the impulsive, anger or mind, like you were saying, spending money. Yeah,
Yep.
I will impulsively spend
fucking
money.
love spending money.
I look at my bank account and I go, ooh, yeah, I don't like that.
No.
So there's a lot of
online shopping is, if I lived in the world before online shopping, I would be a lot better off. I really am good at spending money online.
Yep.
Really good at it. Speaking of which, everybody should support my Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. Help me buy a new laptop. No, it's addictive. They do it on purpose. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's not unintentional that we are addicted to our phones our phones.
I actually just read a book. It's called Hoodwinked. And I think the subtitle is something like how marketers use the same tactics as cult leaders.
Would not be surprised.
Yeah. Which
would not be surprised.
I'm going to look that up. Online shopping. So there's a lot of stuff that I go, it's like, I feel regret. I feel disappointment. I feel guilt. So it's like all of these things, you could look at them as positives because they're just challenges for me to work through to become a better person. Right. But I think now that I'm thinking about it, the ability to read a room and feel like all the people in the room and just have a sense of, yeah, that person's laughing, but really they're grieving. Or that person's really quiet, but they're observing everything, right? Like to have that sense of emotional resonance with people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would necessarily put that only in the BPD category, but it's like,
I think it's a huge component though.
It's a huge component.
That empath, that like intense empath can just walk into a room and kind of like suss out everything. You know exactly what is going on, which is, I think, part of why having BPD is so freaking exhausting because we take on all of these emotions of the people around us and it just sits on us in this like heavy, and it's beautiful, but it also really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that double-edged sword, where
how dialectic.
This is really tiring and I feel like I'm not, living up to my potential or whatever it is. But then on the other hand, you've got, but I can connect with people in a really deep way quickly.
Yeah.
Without question. Sure. And I think that's the part I like the most because I'm all about connection. I'm all about authenticity and connection. So when I can do that, I'm just like, yeah, all right, cool. I like who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. I can't believe we actually finished this episode. It felt like it was never going to happen. This is going to be the most fun thing. I'm going to have to edit this month. I just loved you sharing your story. It was so fun. And I would love, and I know I'm not the only one, if you could send me the list of some of those books that you shared with your kids, some of those books about having a parent with BPD, a list of those would honestly benefit so many people. And I would love to add that to the notes because I get asked about that often. Please. And I can always email you as well. But it would be so helpful for people.
Found a couple of good ones and a couple of kind of crappy ones.
Not great ones.
Like you're saying,
that's the thing.
Sort of,
just make it worse. Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
But I have found a couple of good ones. And I'll send that to you. But yeah, it would be fun to come back and have another conversation and see where we could go with a full block of time.
Yeah, right, where we're not like, this edit is going to have ADHD. I don't even know.
Really will. It'll be very appropriate.
People are going to be like, what just happened? This is the weirdest conversation I've ever had in my life. But it's okay. It'll be fun. There will be little glimmers and people will just suck it up and they'll live. Yeah. So. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
The light still comes out.
Exactly. It will. Thank you so much for listening to the Superfeeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Superfeeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Superfeelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me throughout. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.